Welcome to this week's review. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. The biggest news this week came from the U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, is starting to cut flights. Why? Because the flight safety has been significantly impacted. Air traffic controllers have been significantly impacted. There's been more tarmac incursions. Pilots are reporting stress from air traffic controllers. There's a lack of response from air traffic controllers, according to pilots. And then there are just more absences of air traffic controllers. So it's a pretty big deal. This really counts for 40 major airports. So you can go look those up. But I did some math. Starting today, November 7th, that's when the 4% started. So here's the progression. By Tuesday, it's going to be 6%. Thursday is going to be 8%, and it scales up to 10% by Friday if the government does not reopen. However, it can also get much worse than that. There are potentials for it to be a 15 to 20% cut, which is very significant, which makes the 10% cut look kind. So another thing to note, the international flights, they're not implicated with this due to international agreements. So we don't have to worry about international flights. So here are some numbers for you. The FAA, I found stats, there are about 44,360 flights per day. That is including commercial cargo and like general aviation. However, I found another stat that there is about 45,000 commercial flights on its own. So there's a little bit discrepancy, but either way, these numbers are significant. So starting today, again, 4% cut started today. There were 780 cancellations midday. By today through Sunday, so November 7th through the 9th, there's expected to be 1,700 cancellations, so about 567 per day. And at 10% by next Friday, there's supposed to be 4,400 to estimated 4,500 daily cancellations. And again, that's based on the 44,000 to 45,000 flights per day. Now, if the 20% does happen, that's going to be you can basically double it. So 8,800 to 9,000 cancellations per day. Now, keep in mind, the pre-shutdown average cancellation per day was 340. So this could cost airlines tens of millions of dollars. U.S. citizens, they're going to have a hard time traveling, and it's pretty serious, and it is rather unfortunate. So ideally, we get this solved quickly. I just wanted to start off with that. Now let's dive into the charts. So this is why SPY, a big reason why the SPY got hit this week, is saying along with Qs. I do want to address one thing that I do not necessarily is true. A lot of people on social media are saying, hey, be mindful of the bearish engulfing. It's not a good sign. Well, the last two bearish engulfing, true bearish engulfing, was here the week of July 28th, and we ran up. Also here, the week of October 6th, and we had a nice push up. This technically isn't even a bearish engulfing to my knowledge. It doesn't even go above this week's, right? So I'm not treating this as it's rather bearish and it's rather large, but it does not engulf last week. So just be mindful of that, okay? I'm not treating this as an end-all be-all. Matter of fact, I think this is a buying opportunity. Why? Because this is actually the first time the SPY has hit the 50 EMA since May 7th, Wednesday, May 7th. So, this equates to the weekly 10 EMA or SMA, whatever you use, about. So it's nothing significant, right? And we're not even 5% off of all-time highs. We're 2.77% off of all-time highs. Okay, let's move on to RSP. Again, this is the equally weighted S&P 500. So we're at prior support area. It looks like it's holding for now. If you like volume, here's a nice little volume spike. So, or increased volume relative to the mean. And so this area continues to hold. Let's look at the NASDAQ. It's a very similar story. For you trend line traders, I drew a nice trend line here. It undercut today, tagged the 50 EMA. It's still making a higher high. We're still making higher lows. The trend is still up. Yes, we had a pretty strong move, down 3% on the week. However, in the grand scheme of things, it's rather healthy. Now, yes, it can get much uglier if the government doesn't open up and flights are continue to be canceled, and I'm sure other things will occur from that. However, for now, and there are already talks about potential reopening, even though it was shut down rather quickly, they're at least talking, so it's a good thing. Let's look at the equally weighted cues. Again, prior breakout here, support, support, again at support, have a nice bottoming tail. So it's not, right now, I am not screaming yellow flags. We could, if you want to try the prediction game, we could get a head and shoulders here, and then this is a break of the neckline. It can go down. I'm not into that. I play what's in front of me as time goes on. Okay, other sectors that I think we need to be aware of coming into the week is specifically XLC. So top three names right here, Netflix, Meta, and Google. We'll go over these names shortly, but what's really dragging this down, number one is Meta is getting hit, and also Netflix, it's not really doing much. Google is very strong, so that's the best name out of these three. It's around a prior support area. It did technically make a lower low. So we do want to be mindful of what is to come here or a potential to come, especially if Netflix and Meta is weak. However, I'm kind of anticipating a little bit of a bounce and maybe some consolidation and for this to eventually turn upside. We shall see though. XLU, so utilities looks pretty interesting. Nice, strong, bullish engulfing candle here on volume at the 50 EMA. So we call that confluence. It closed above the short-term 8 and 21 EMA for those of you that use that. We made a higher high, and this, is a potential higher low. I mean, this is the prior low right here, all the way down by $84-ish. So, nothing too concerning here, in my opinion. Another one of interest is XLV. Healthcare stocks, they still look pretty good. So Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, and AbbVie are the top three names here. Again, overall look that I've been going over is the down trend line. It has been broken. It came back, set a higher low, a higher high, higher low, and now we have another higher low made last week. And we're really just looking for a breakout of this area here. So if you trade XLV, that might be interest for you. Let's move to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of stalling here. It broke this prior support area, and now it's chopping around at this prior support area. It is also spending time underneath the 200 EMA. So it's looking rather weak at the moment. However, this could just consolidate, chop around sideways. But I'm not too concerned unless this breaks this 98,000 level, and maybe we can find it around 90 or so, 88 to 90. It'd have to pass this 92. So we'll see what actually happens there, but really it's just a laggard. It's not really doing much as of right now. Okay, let's move on to the heavyweights of the market. MSFT, Microsoft. So biggest news for this week is they are starting a super intelligence team under the AI chief Mustafa Suleyman. So this is going to focus on advanced research, including medical diagnostics, starting in 2026. So that's pretty big. They continue to make AI deals. One of them is including $9.7 billion agreement with Iran for cloud services among increasing AI demand. So this shouldn't be super surprising. Going over some technical analysis here. It is spending time underneath the 50 EMA. The 200 is around 475. Call it. We are 11% off the highs. We're down 4% on the weekly. This isn't necessarily a double top yet. In my opinion, I think it has to break and hold this 490 level to really be considered a double top. This could just continue to consolidate and chop sideways. This could be a support play. And if we get a bounce next week, as the government opens, this could be a pretty decent support play to buy in risk against, in my opinion. NVIDIA, so they can't sell their Blackwell chips to China. And I also read there are also the government is blocking sales of their scaled down versions too. So that's probably also playing a role into this move. However, the general government shutdown and general market weakness also plays a role into this. So all of these gaps filled and all the gains made just last week have been given back. Um, Bigger picture, that's not the best look. Technical analysis wise, this is another breakout and retest. We'll see if it actually fails. However, on the retest, look at the volume, large volume, bottoming tail. I'd anticipate a bounce right by the 50 EMA. We're 12%, 11.5% away from highs. So this could be a decent area to risk against. Let's move on to Apple. Now, this is relative strength. As the rest of the market has sold off, this was down by 0.7%, not even 1% on the week. So and it's holding the ADMA also above the 21. So this is a very strong game. Why AI is revamping their Siri with Google's model. They're also entering a low-cost laptop market in early 2026. And I guess Tim Cook also forecasted double-digit iPhone sales growth for this holiday season coming up here. So it has some tailwinds behind it, and it's staying relatively strong with the rest of this market sell-off, staying and holding all-time highs. So Apple is definitely on the top of the list to continue to watch. Amazon, biggest news here, 14,000 corporate layoffs, and then they're targeting 30,000 amid cost efficiencies. We have a nice earning gap. We're starting to bleed into that a little bit. However, it was really just a pullback to the short-term EMA, didn't even touch the 21, and it's holding the breakout of it. Even closed at the weekly all-time highs anyway. So it looks pretty good. I think this earning gap area is a decent area to play in, so we shall see. But overall, it looks pretty decent, especially if the market wants to turn back around. AVGO, this is the first pullback after making an all-time high, tagging the 50 EMA. So you can see this, right? You can see this pattern. A lot of names hit the 50 EMA this week on volume. Nice bottoming tail. We'll see what next week has to come. This could be a nice little cup with a little handle, as it has potential to actually break out and not really have a fail here. We'll see what happens. Meta's a big name. It has gotten smoked over the week, really, down 4%. However, really over since earnings, let's go about from the close and to the low. It's lost 20% in 7 trading days. So it's 22% away from all-time highs. The biggest thing here is there are reports of Meta projecting $16 billion, so about 10% of 2024 sales from scam ads, and it's leading to lawsuits, and it's just a problem. And there's also suspicion that they know of this, but they don't really care too much because they're benefiting from it, and they're like 96% of the scam ads are labeled as like low threat. So it seems like they might not be taking it seriously. And that's probably also part of why Meta's getting hit. Now, technical analysis wise, you can see we filled the gap. The next gap starts around 570. This might hold here. We're 22% off all-time highs. Long term, I'm sure this name's not going anywhere, but you never know. This is most likely, with it being a heavyweight, one of the heavier names in the market, a sale for long-term buy. But right now, I am not interested in trading this much. Netflix, we have the 10-to-1 stock split that I did forget to mention next week. It's happening on the 17th. So 2 weeks Monday. This is just holding this prior support area. It's been chopping around the 200 EMA. It's about 18% away from all-time highs. It's underneath this consolidation area. Honestly, it doesn't look good. It's just chopping around and a waste of time. We can move on. Tesla, I don't think this is a waste of time here. I was kind of looking for a breakout with this look last week. However, it obviously failed. Elon, he did get the $1 trillion pay package approved. What that includes is beyond the scope and purpose of this video. Please go read what it actually entails and just be mindful of misleading headline news. So go read. Either way, I am looking for a breakout eventually of Tesla. Maybe it's this week. I am watching this on guard because this name can move. Google, another very strong relative strength move. While the rest of the market got hit this week, again, it's not even down 1%. So this has just been time correcting. Again, remember, time correcting markets are stronger markets. This just let the 8 EMA catch up. So this is another name along with Apple that it's going to be on the top of my list next week if the market wants to bounce. Now, CrowdStrike also is going to be on the top of my list. We have a breakout to all-time highs here. Let me go to the weekly, right? All-time highs. We have, I was looking, this breakout here of this little wedge failed and it got hit. But really, it's not that bad because it is a breakout and retest. And now we have a pretty good bullish candle, very strong bullish candle here today when the market was weak. So this is another name of relative strength. Now, news, we got a 5-to-1 stock split coming up. Honestly, I don't know when it's happening, but it is coming. It's broken. You know, I was watching this level here as an obvious level of 890 of support. It broke, and now here's another obvious level. We do have a little bit more area to fill from this gap from earnings on the evening of the 23rd. And then we have another gap down here. I'm not interested in it overall. Let's go to Palantir. Palantir had earnings this week. It was very good earnings, the best earnings that they have. Karp is super bullish on his company, as any CEO should be, you would hope, right? So kind of broke out, failed. However, it is right back to where prior support was. So this is an area of interest here. It is under the 50 EMA, but we'll see how long it actually stays under there. I am still watching this name. It's not on the top of my list. However, this name can move. It's lost 14% in 1, 2, 3, 4 days. So it can move. It might be a little oversold relative short-term wise, but I would anticipate a bounce coming. Hood also had very good earnings this week. However, it's not really doing much. It's consolidating, chopping sideways within this 154 to 120 range. It's 15% off of highs. So until this really breaks out and wants to start moving, I'm not super interested in it. So again, what I'm looking at specifically this week where I think you should pay attention to, if the market wants to bounce, if the government opens and we actually have it working. Apple for a long, we have Google for a long, and we have CrowdStrike for a long. Tesla, I'm also interested in, but the setup currently right now is Apple, Google, and CrowdStrike. Hopefully that is helpful for you guys. Do your homework, prepare, like, subscribe if you find these valuable. Give me feedback if I can do anything better for you. Otherwise, trade safe, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.